Today we are talking about restrictive and non-restrictive adjective clauses. So just to remind you, an adjective clause is a clause that describes a noun. And it's pretty easy because almost always the clause starts with, comes right after the noun. So here we have the girl who lives next door is my best friend. And our marker here is who, and then who lives next door, describing the girl. So now there are two types of adjective clauses, restrictive and non-restrictive. And so I'll give an example of each. First, Mr. Brown, who owns that big car, is so friendly. A lot of times restrictive and non-restrictive adjectives clauses are taught in saying that non-restrictive clauses contain unnecessary information, which can be really misleading because no matter what the adjective clause is, you can always take it out and it still makes sense. And so you could say, for example, in both of these, Mr. Brown, who owns that big car, is so friendly. You could say, Mr. Brown is so friendly. Still makes sense. Still a coherent sentence. Same with this one. The man who owns that big car is so friendly. The man is so friendly. Those are both grammatically correct sentences. So I would not think of it as essential to the grammatical sense of the sentence, but instead to specifying the noun. So here we have who owns that big car. This is the marker, and we're describing Mr. Brown. If we take out that clause, it just says Mr. Brown is so friendly, which we still have identified Mr. Brown. We know who he is. The purpose of this clause is to give extra information about Mr. Brown, not tell you who Mr. Brown is. And so this is extra and it's non-restrictive. We have the choice to put this clause in here. And whenever you have a non-restrictive, we'll put an N for non-restrictive, you need to put commas around the clause. So now here's an example of restrictive. The man who owns that big car is so friendly. So we have the same. Who is the marker, and the clause is owns that big car. We could take it out and say the man is so friendly. We now don't know who the man is. This could be any random man. The purpose of this clause is to specify who the man is. Oh, the man who owns that big car. Okay, I know who you're talking about now. And so this clause is essential, not grammatically, but it's essential with the meaning of describing who the man is. So we call it restrictive. It has to be there. We can't take it out. And so there are no commas surrounding that clause. Let's do a couple of practice examples. Okay, here we have the school cafeteria that is so old still serves great food. So we see that there are commas around this clause. And so that's a pretty good indication that this is a non-restrictive clause. So let's practice. Let's just take the clause out and see what happens. The school cafeteria still serves great food. Do we know what the school cafeteria is? That's the noun that we're looking at. Yes, we already know what the school cafeteria is. So this is just extra information about the school cafeteria that is so old. So yes, non-restrictive. Perfect. Next one. The building where they serve great food is so old. So our clause here, where they serve great food, let's take it out and see if we can still identify our noun, which is building. It says, the building is so old. So as you can see, we now know we now don't know what building we're talking about. Which building is so old? The purpose of this clause, again, is to specify the building where they serve great food. So it does not need commas. It's essential for the meaning, and it is restrictive. So at the bottom here, we just have our quick reminders. Restrictive clauses have no commas. Non-restrictive clauses have commas. I hope this can clear things up and help you on your restrictive and non-restrictive adjective clauses.